Yes, guys, welcome to Chasing Greeny Arrows. We are back with your midweek special. It's Wednesday. It's me and BigMan every Wednesday lunchtime in the UK. For those joining in Canada, like CH, it's first thing in the morning. And perhaps for those of you further east in Asia, it's late at night. But thank you guys for joining us. It's about big questions, this show, BigMan. So we're going to be addressing all the topical issues of the week so far, right?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jani. Hello and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of big questions to answer this week. In fact, I was struggling to pick three of them, like we usually do, because there's so many to answer. So lots of content to get through in the next hour or so.
Hey, BigMan, on the initial screen, I noticed, because we've always done these streams on Mondays and Fridays with me and Dean, the holding screen before we just came on says, Chasing Green Arrows, picture of me and Dean at 7 p.m. So if you're new around here and you're looking at that thinking, this isn't 7 p.m., you're quite right. And it's not Dean, it's BigMan. So it's me and Dean on Mondays and Fridays. Note for the diary, happens around 7 p.m. every week. So that's accurate. But then midweek, it's me and BigMan. So get used to it. Wednesday lunchtimes, pencil it in your diary. We'll be here every week throughout the season. First time watching live from Perth in Australia. That is late night, isn't it? That is late night in Australia. Awesome. Thank you for joining us, dude. Good to see so many new faces in the chat. BigMan, you're bringing so many new faces to the channel. We love that. So hopefully these guys are all liking and subscribing. But Carlos and Munster and Jermaine, RT, all coming in, resting pilgrims with us. We've just seen the Archer done deal, BigMan. What do you make of that? Like, we've got a 4.5 starter. It's great. He's still going to be on our bench most weeks. He's still going to be our 8th attacker, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I own him, so I'm happy that he's moving. But realistically, I mean, you're not going to play him ahead of the strikers or the midfielders that you own. So and Sheffield United's fixtures, I mean, I was looking at their fixtures till game week 10. Their most favorable fixture is against Everton in game week 4 at home, and I don't think I'll play him ahead of any of my attackers. So I do think that the excitement is a little bit overblown.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's always nice to have that extra 4.5 option on the bench.
Yeah. It does make you think like that 8th attacker is. It's always perfect for a 4.5 midfielder or forward, but even more so when they're a good player and they're starting regularly. And Archer will be that. So there is no need. I've seen a few managers this week that might look at downgrading a Bruno or a Salah. And because of that, they're upgrading their 8th attacker. And it's like, dude, you're just giving yourself a massive headache every week. Keep that 8th attacker as 4.5 Archer. He's the perfect guy. Coffee and CGA for lunchtime for a few of our guys in the chat. Absolutely love that. 2 of the best men to listen to, says Dara. Thank you, mate. Really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
I'm buzzing about our new show. So let's get to it, shall we? Look, coming up, we're going to address the 3 main big questions, but then we're also going to look at BigMan's team. That's going to be cool because we'll talk about both our teams. We're both on 2 free transfers. I think we've both made a move. And then we'll obviously be answering your questions. If you've got a question throughout the show, we'll address some of them, but then often we'll leave them towards the end of the show, depending on if they're topical for what we're discussing at the moment. We might bring them in straight away. If you've got a super chat, that'll be prioritized, but obviously we'll answer any question regardless if we can. So let's get to it. What's the first big question of the week? Let's have a look. I think it might include Man United attackers Rashford and Bruno. Yeah, here we go. What to do with Rashford and Bruno? Let's have a look because you've been tweeting about this, BigMan. Let's go to our first slide. And you did tweet early in the week. And I think I sent this being like, this is perfect for our show. You're thinking that maybe you give them one more game, right? You like that fixture.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that a lot of people are panicking because they see a lot of other midfielders performing well. I mean, the likes of Mbeumo, Mitoma, even Foden now, they're performing really well, while the United guys have been blanking for 2 weeks. They haven't really looked great either in attack. I mean, United haven't scored more than a single goal in the first 2 fixtures. So obviously, I can understand where people are coming from, but the underlying data suggests that the returns are likely to come. We look at Bruno. He had 3 big chance involvements against Spurs. You look at Rashford, he had 2 big chances. And yes, Forest have looked okay. They've looked all right. They've looked defensively decent this season. But again, going over a large sample size, we know that Bruno and Rashford have proven themselves to be very good assets to own in the past. And we know that Forest historically have struggled away from home. They were 20th actually for goals conceded away from home last season. So I would rather back that large sample size of data that I know.
Yeah, I hear that. Let's have a look at some of that data because I've seen some more tweets from you that we can skip on to them. And this was interesting because the big chance creation, like that looks like a small number when you see just 2 big chances. But when you actually compare big chances, that's a high XG chance created. It's very rare you see a player, even the likes of Bruno and KDB and co, create big chances. So Foden just had an amazing weekend against Newcastle. He created 6 chances. None of them were big chances. 2 big chances created by Bruno against Spurs is huge. Like over 2 XG in that game for Man United. Bruno owners probably count themselves unfortunate, but it's a common theme, isn't it? He's been underperforming his XG, certainly his XGI of late, and you can include the run at the end of last season in that too.
Absolutely. I mean, even United as a whole, I mean, they underperformed their XG by almost 13 to 14 goals last season. So that's a lot. So clearly there's a problem with finishing. I mean, yes, he's unlucky, but it does suggest that there's a bit of a problem. Well, he's on penalties, and had he scored a penalty or had he even gotten an assist, I assume a lot of people's perceptions regarding Rashford and Bruno would be a whole lot different because again, it's all output based, right? People tend to just go and flock to those players who are performing. Even when you look this week, Bruno and Rashford are very, very highly sold. I mean, it shows that a lot of people are jumping ship just because of the fact that they're blank. But again, based on underlying data, those numbers are incredible. He could have easily had a penalty as well. I mean, the returns are coming, surely. I mean, I'd be very surprised if both blanked against Forest.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like Forest did do well in the opening game week versus Arsenal. Like they went to the Emirates and Arsenal put up less than 1 XG, which is very rare for them. So Forest have improved defensively, but with no Mason Mount in the team, that's good for Bruno, I think, because often when one goes, the other one's holding. But I think we'll see Bruno going every time. And when Mount goes off in games, which we've seen for the last 20 minutes, Bruno's always more advanced. So keep an eye on that. That's good news for Bruno owners. I just saw a comment in the chat from CH saying, good question, Martin. Now, when CH says good question, Martin, I'm like, got to find Martin's question. So, Martin, we will address your question in just a second about the top 5 mids. But let's continue this chat with Bruno because the XGI in the first 2 game weeks, again, Mbeumo's, everyone's raving about him. Mitoma the same, Vissa the same, but Bruno above them. So this is non-penalty XGI, is it?
Yeah, it is. And when you look at the returns for the rest, I mean, Mbeumo's had 3 goals. Mitoma's had has had like a 17 pointer over 2 weeks. Vissa scored left, right, and center. Diaz has scored this week. March scored a brace. Every one of the players listed on this list have performed really well. Bruno is the only one who's not performed. He's underperformed to a big extent. I mean, this suggests that he should have had 2 returns, which is a lot.
Yeah, that header he missed probably had an XG of like 0.6, 0.7. Like the header was 4 yards out, unmarked, like central. So yeah, you got to think they're coming. I do think though, after Forest, there's a big question over both United and Arsenal midfielders if they continue to have a poor weekend game week 3. Because Martinelli for me is someone I'm considering game week 4 selling. And if I own Bruno, I think game week 4 would be when I sell. Possibly even Rashford, although we hope by game week 4 we see Rashford more wide. And when he's wide, we know he's a better asset. But that question that we had come in about the best 5 midfielders, CH gave a shout out to. Yeah, there we go. Martin's question. The best 5 midfielders for me at the moment, we'll both give you our 5. This is completely off the top of our head, but I would say it's 2 on that list, and Mbeumo and Mitoma, 2 6.5s. Then I would have Foden, definitely. I'd still probably have Saka. And then I'm lost. I don't know if I could recommend a Rashford or a Martinelli or an Odegaard. I don't know. Where would you go? I can pick 4, but I don't know if I can pick 5. Maybe Diaz or Jota. I don't know.
I'd pick Mbeumo for sure. I'd also pick Rashford simply because I do think he has that explosive potential. Saka still because, again, in the post-match, we found out that it was completely random that Odegaard took the penalty. It could easily be Saka next time, and Saka is the most nailed in terms of minutes. And with Champions League coming up, I think he would definitely be a pick in my team. Probably Foden as well. Although I'm not as confident as you are, but
No one ever is,
potentially. But
mate. No one's ever as confident of
I
Foden as
mean,
I am.
I still like Fernandes and Odegaard, if I'm being honest, because even when you look at Arsenal's fixtures over the next four, they look all right. I mean, Spurs at home, United at home, Everton away, and this week they have Fulham at home, who have conceded the highest XG in what 4 weeks. So I think Arsenal will have plenty of fun this week, and I expect the same from United as well, which would make it a very difficult decision next week um, to sell them, right? So in my head, I think all these guys will step up this week, and that is why I actually want to give myself the flexibility of having 2 free transfers, because then you can decide, depending on who hasn't performed, then you can sell one of them for someone like a Foden next week.
See, I think over Odegaard, Martinelli, and Bruno, I would put Jota. I've got a soft spot for Jota, a bit like Foden. When he's on the pitch, I always think chances are falling his way. I think his XGI, though, as we can see, like Diaz 1.5, I think Jota's is around 1. But I like the fact he's playing number 9 for Liverpool. And Darwin hasn't looked amazing off the bench. And I think we're going to continue to see Jota. Like when he's scoring goals, you're not going to drop him. So I like Jota as a pick. And Sterling is someone we've not mentioned. I do think like we're all looking at Jackson this week. We'll speak about Jackson in a second. But Sterling's a 7.0 mid. Now, he has been terrible for Chelsea. Like, I bet one of our worst players pre-season as well. First 20 minutes, I thought he was poor versus West Ham. But then from 20 minutes on, he was the best player on the pitch. And I do wonder if off the back of that performance, he's got Luton and Forest at home. Sterling could be a really nice differential punt. And I think he's around 7.5. But yeah, it's midfield spaces. Yeah. There's just no space for him, is there? Like, it's easier to buy a Jackson than it is a Sterling.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, I don't even mind Eze either. I think he's going under the radar. His numbers are all right. They're not bad. Yeah. And Crystal Palace from next week, this week their fixture, Brentford away isn't the best fixture, but after this week, Crystal Palace have a very good run of fixtures. So he's another 90-minute man. Same argument for Mbeumo as for him on penalties, on set pieces. I can see him scoring plenty of points in the weeks to come as well. I don't think he's a bad pick at all.
He's got a complete free role. Watching him against Arsenal, he is central, super high. It's often split forwards, Edouard and Ayew either side, and Eze down the middle. Like, he's often the closest to goal, but he's everything about that Crystal Palace team. And game week 1, when they played, was it Sheffield United? I can't remember. They went to Sheffield United.
It was.
Didn't he rack up an XGI of like 0.9 in that single game? It's still blank. Yeah. So he's up there.
He was top for shots. He was top for shots in that game as well, and 5 shots inside the box in that game. His numbers were great. So I think when the fixtures turn, which they are after game week 4, he's one to keep an eye on as well.
M&M Land says Eze rumours to be targeted by Man City. I mean, that would be such a fun move for him. But I could see Pep loving Eze. A little bit like when we saw Pep go for Grealish. Like, he was happy to look further down the division and go the best player from that team. And it's similar with Eze as Grealish was to Villa. I wonder if he'll suppress him a little bit though, because Grealish isn't quite the player we saw at Aston Villa under City. He's got to be way more disciplined. And I'd hate Eze to turn into a really disciplined sort of, I'm going to pass sideways and backwards and just control the tempo of a game, because he is that wild card and that spark.
I think his role is different. I mean, Grealish on the left can be instructed to stay wide and to have more work rate and come back and forth. But with Eze, I think he'll give him more of a free role, which is what City are about. I mean, the runners behind Haaland. Yeah, exactly. The runners behind Haaland is where the goal threat usually comes from.
We will ask our transfer guru on Friday's show. I can see the news has been broken by Jack Gorn, who's a Northern reporter for the Daily Mail. So credible-ish source, Man City are weighing up a move for Eze, with Crystal Palace expected to demand north of 70 million for any suitors. That would be really interesting. And we know they're in the market for a central sort of playmaker type with the KDB injury, but still as a replacement for Gundogan as well, remember. And obviously Doku's signing is great, but make no mistakes, Doku is a wide man. Like, he's had most of his minutes out wide right, some wide left, and very few centrally. He's a runner, he's a provider, he's a winger. So Eze would be a completely different profile to that, which would be very useful, I'm sure. Let's move on. Thank you all for your questions and the comments in the chat, keeping us up to date with all the breaking news as well, as always, guys. Appreciate that, M&M Land. 167 of you are watching. Do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because when you subscribe, you get the notifications if you hit the bell. So ahead of us going live every show, you'll know about it. And the times do vary a little bit. It's nearly always Mondays and Fridays around 6 or 7, and then Wednesday lunchtime is me and BigMan. So let's talk about Mbeumo. He's been impressive because he's got all this great non-penalty XGI, as we've just seen, but then he has pens on top. And in Brentford get penalties. I think they had 8 last season, and they've had 2 already this.
Yeah, second highest for pens last season with Brentford. And again, this season, he's been basically the talisman with Ivan Toney not in the picture. He's taken that role in 7 games without Toney since 2022. He's had 8 goals, 11 big chances, and is averaging over 10 FPL points per game. Another thing that I like about Mbeumo is that while with most midfielders, you expect them to be taken around the 70-minute mark, he's going to play 90 minutes. And Wissa tends to get a sub around the 70-minute mark as well, which gives Mbeumo the opportunity to play, let's say, 25 to 30 minutes roughly as a striker, which is very, very important, especially now that the stoppage time has increased. We've seen that over the first 2 weeks. That's actually a very pertinent point. And when someone is on set pieces as well, on penalties, so many routes to points. And I really like the fixtures of Brentford as well. If you look at their fixture that's really good all the way up till game week 9.
Let's have a look at some of those stats then and some of your tweets. We can see some of the numbers here. So this is your comparison with and without Toney. Talk us through this.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers don't get any better. I see a lot of people say that, he's been relied on penalties, but I mean, in 7 games, he's had 11 big chances. How many of them were penalties? I mean, let's say even if 4 or 5 of them were penalties, even then he's had plenty of big chances from open play as well. So I think penalties or no penalties, he's still a very, very good option.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Let's have a look at some of those fixtures coming up from Mbeumo as well then, because I was put off him at the start of the season because I didn't fancy Brentford. And I thought Spurs was a tough fixture, and obviously Mbeumo did well. And I thought going to... who did they have the weekend? They had Fulham. I thought going to Craven Cottage might not be the easiest, but now Fulham definitely look like the team's target. Dean was at that game, and he said on last night's stream, and go back and watch it, guys, if you've not watched our Tuesday night stream. After this, check out Chasing Green Arrow show from yesterday. And Dean was like, Brentford weren't impressive at all, and he thinks Fulham were completely on top, which I massively respect and appreciate Dean's view on that. But even when Brentford aren't on top, this guy's got a route to points because he's the main man in that team, and obviously he's on pens. But the fixtures do get better. They've now got 2 home games. So Crystal Palace and Bournemouth up next, both at home. Although I do think Palace is a tough fixture. But what do you reckon? You like these fixtures?
I mean, Palace, I expect them to be difficult to break down. But this is the thing with Brentford. I mean, more often than not, they don't look as convincing. You notice that even defensively, they tend to concede plenty of shots, but they're not really high XG ones, which they concede. And similarly, in terms of goal threat, they don't really rack up a huge number of shots, but whatever chances they create are of high quality. That, again, plays into their hand. It was the exact same was the case for Toney as well last season, where his shot volume wasn't the best, but the quality of chances he was getting was very, very high. And that's exactly the case with Mbeumo. In fact, in the first 2 weeks, no one has had more big chances than him. So clearly, it suggests that he's integral to Brentford's play style.
Guys, we can probably do a poll on Mbeumo. This is interesting because last night we polled should we put him in the chaser team, and it was pretty split. We ended up putting him in we've sold Bruno for Mbeumo, which is interesting by the chasers. Love that. But I want to know, do you have Mbeumo in your team? Or no, will you have Mbeumo in your team in game week 3 is the question. Yes or no? I'm really interested to see the percentage split on this. So we'll put a poll out. Will Mbeumo be in your game week 3 team? He's not in my team, and I can't see how I get him because I'm not willing to sell Martinelli or Rashford this week. So for me, it's going to have to be a game week 4 pickup, which, to be fair, ahead of Bournemouth at home might not be a bad thing. But obviously, he's had a couple of price rises. He went up again. Leo bought him last night. He's now, I think, 6.7. I went Mitoma, which is why I don't have him, by the way. BigMan, you're on Mbeumo, right?
Yeah, I've had him since game week 1. I was actually torn between him and Richarlison.
Wow, that's a big swing, isn't it?
That's a mental swing. That's a mental swing. I was actually I was actually set on Mbeumo for, let's say, the whole of preseason, but on the deadline day, news broke out that Kane is leaving. Then I
Yeah.
switched to Richarlison, and I was on Richarlison for a good hour or so. But like, let's say an hour before the deadline, I switched back to Mbeumo because I just realized that I wanted to have the 90-minute man who's on penalties. And I honestly did not expect the swing to be as big because it was actually a very 50-50 decision. I personally know people who went for Richarlison, and that 18-point swing, I mean, it must absolutely suck. I mean, it's not really representative of the gap between the two options, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. Because if you did go Richarlison, there's a very good chance you don't have any 6.5 mids. So you've not only missed out on Mbeumo, but you've missed out on any Matoma points too.
Exactly.
Which I get must be painful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so close to Richarlison too, mate. And like you, we both had money in the bank. I know you left 0.5 in the bank, so you could go up to
Yeah.
Richarlison, and I left
Yeah.
$1 million in the bank, so I could too. But I'm so glad I didn't make that move. It was more a case of me going, I don't really want Richarlison game week 1, but I know I'm going to want him come game week 3. So shall I just buy him early? But fortunately, both of us held strong on that one. And now game week 3's come round, and do we want to buy Richarlison? Probably not. That might change come game week 4, 5. And Maddison's injury, and if he's available game week 4, which I think he probably will be, again, maybe he's the preferred pick. But I do see myself investing in Mbeumo or a Spurs midfielder in game week 4. The poll so far, by the way, it's not surprising. 65% have said he will be in their game week 3 team. And I expect probably 20% of those are probably pickups in the last few days that have picked him up ahead of game week 3.
Yes, while we're on Mbeumo, I mean, there are two relevant questions to this, which I think require further discussion. Firstly, is that there are a lot of people, as we've discussed with Fernandez, Rashford, who don't own Mbeumo. Would you swap either of those to get Mbeumo? I personally won't.
I would sell Bruno before Rashford. I just don't know if I'd do it this week. I think I'd look at the fixtures and go, I will make that move in game week 4, because whilst Brentford Palace is a good fixture, I don't think it's a great fixture at all. That Palace defence is decent. So I think I'd save it to game week 4 and give Bruno that one more week.
I completely agree. I mean, it's like selling good assets for other good assets. I don't really see.
Although I'm doing that up front this week. I think I'm doing that up front this week with Watkins and Jackson, but maybe that leads in nicely to our question number 3.
Of course. And the other question that I have on this is that, a lot of people are, let's say, on Maddison, right? And obviously, if he's injured, it looks like he has a minor MCL strain, so it doesn't look like he'll be risked this week. So if you own someone like a Maddison, do you get Mbeumo or do you get someone like a Foden?
I would be tempted if I owned Maddison this week. If I had one free transfer, I would keep Maddison. If I had 2 and I didn't have any other fires, I could jump ship and then go back. But I think Maddison's quite a dangerous sell. Look how good he's been in the first couple of game weeks. I think he's someone you'll want back in your team. So I'd probably go to Foden for a week and then back, or you go to Foden and stay there and find another way of recruiting Maddison, maybe for your Martinelli or your Rashford game week 4. What do you reckon?
I think if it's a minor MCL strain, I don't think he'll be risked this week, and there's no guarantee he's going to be back next week either. So I think he's a sell. It obviously depends on what's said in the press conference, but with the information we have right now, I don't think he'll be worth keeping, especially when there's so many other midfielders who are scoring points. I mean, left, right, and center. I personally prefer Mbeumo to Foden if I was buying one this week for the reasons we mentioned. But it's a very close call. It's just the fact that Mbeumo is nailed for 90 minutes and Foden is not as high for expected.
I prefer Foden to Mbeumo this week. But I get the minutes thing and the penalty thing. I just love the ceiling that Foden gives you. I don't see many weeks where Mbeumo can get double digits. Was I saying that? He's just gone and done it. He can get double
for this week. For this week alone, I think I prefer Foden as well. But if you're talking let's say a 4-week spell, when UCL does become a factor, I think Mbeumo could outscore Foden in the next 4 weeks.
It's a fair point with the Champions League. We can't forget, the Champions League kicks in. What game week is it? It's like mid-September. Is it game week 5?
It's 5. Yeah, it's game week 5.
So it will be after game week 5, or for some teams it will be after game week 6, depending on where in the draw they are.
Yes. It's basically it starts in the midweek after game week 5.
Yeah. Okay. So do look out for that with the teams the good thing is there's still good teams not involved in Europe this year. So it doesn't bother you for Chelsea players. It doesn't bother you for Brentford players. It doesn't bother you for Spurs players, right? Did Spurs make the Conference League? I can't remember.
No, they
I don't think
lost.
they did.
No, they
It's
lost the
Villa
last
and
game of
Brighton,
the
wasn't
season.
it?
Yeah.
In the Europa and
Villa won on the last day
yeah.
of the season. So Villa qualified and Spurs missed out.
Yeah, okay. So again, good for your Spurs assets for that one fixture a week and Chelsea and good teams like Brentford. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm tempted to sell Watkins. But let's move on to the forward discussion with our next question. Guys, thank you for all the chat. Just seen Luke's joined us and Adam and RT's in the house. Andrew and Chaz, Tiffany, Oxlane, Kev, Mac. Thank you all for joining, guys. If you're new around here, hit the subscribe button. But of course, if we could get to 100 likes, that'd be awesome. Only 57 of the 234 watching have hit the like button. So if you fancy hitting the like button, if you're enjoying the stream, please do so. Let's move on to some Jackson numbers. What you got for us here, big man?
I mean, why don't you run us through them? Because I mean, you're the one who's looking to buy. Yeah, you're the one who's looking to buy him in the first place.
I am looking to buy Jackson, and look, selling Watkins. What are your reasons? Selling Watkins doesn't mean I don't like Watkins against Burnley away. I think that's a good fixture. You can only have 15 players, and I'm prioritising Jackson. Like these fixtures, Luton at home, Forest at home, and then it's Bournemouth after that. Like, what a run. It gets a bit tricky for Chelsea in like a month's time, but for the next few, I really want Jackson. The only thing stopping me buying him is if I hear Chelsea are heavily linked with a number 9 who's likely to come in. Now, Brozier is back in training. He's been out for a year. Brozier's not starting games anytime soon. I'm pretty big on the Jackson move this week. It's probably because I've got the transfer in the bank. Like, obviously, if you can roll the extra transfer, you roll the extra transfer. But I can't see where I'm going to use it immediately. And Jackson to Watkins makes a lot of sense. Like Watkins plays Burnley and then Liverpool away versus Jackson with 2 great home fixtures. I know he hasn't been the deadliest finisher, but he finished well for Villarreal last season. He finished well in pre-season. I'm pretty big on this move. And I can't see his ownership there, big man. Is it under 20%?
17%.
Yeah. So 17%. Less owned than Watkins too. I like him. Obviously you went to Jackson early. So you, of course, you're happy with him in your team this week. But if you're in my boat and you owned Watkins, would you look to jump ship if you had the free transfer?
Yeah. Yes, and I think a lot of people find themselves in your position. Because a lot of people have 2 free transfers and they don't necessarily have a better transfer to make. Now, in my opinion, I don't think Watkins is a hard sell. I think it's a bit of a luxury transfer to make because Watkins still, his fixtures are all right. I mean, you'd expect him to perform against Burnley this week, but it's just the flexibility that 1 million will give you for future transfers, and the fact that Chelsea have such a exciting fixture schedule that makes you want to jump to Jackson because his upside is higher, in my opinion. And as you've mentioned, we'll have Europe coming up, so we haven't really seen this in the past, but Watkins did get subbed around the 73rd, 74th minute mark this week, which could happen again.
Europe, isn't it? It's preparing for Europe and all those fixtures that are coming. It's like, let's rest him when we can.
Yeah. Exactly. And the fact that he's not on penalties anymore, it sort of makes me question his explosive potential. Well, with Jackson, you know what you're getting. The fixtures are great. You mentioned Broca. I actually like this as a Jackson owner that Broca will be available soon because it basically yeah, exactly, it reduces the chances of them investing in a very good striker, which basically means that Jackson will be nailed for minutes, more or less. I invested in him in game week 1, and I believe I've been very unlucky with his returns. I mean,
is it 2 1-pointers because of the yellow cards?
It has, unfortunately. I've had 2 1-pointers from him in the first 2 weeks, which has been very painful to take. But I mean, obviously the main reason for me picking him was this run from game week 3 till 8, because now I'm sort of a transfer ahead of the curve because a lot of people will be buying him this week. So that was the whole idea about buying him early on anyway. And he's had 3 big chances in the first 2 weeks, which is second highest after Mbeumo. So his numbers are decent. Only Wissa's had a better non-pen XGI among forwards in the spell. So I expect returns to come. and I expect him to be very popular in the fantasy community in
On
the times to come.
on the show last night, mate, it was hilarious. Dean, I've posted it on social. In fact, it's probably on the CGA Twitter and Insta. Do follow Chasing Green Arrows on social as well. Dean said something like, because I'm big on Jackson, clearly. Dean said something, and I think I maybe referred to him as a handful. And Dean went, yeah, of course he's a handful, but Origi was a handful. Like, doesn't mean he's any good. And it was hilarious. Dean says he's not going to own Jackson all season, which is a bold call. And here I am selling a very good Ollie Watkins for him probably this week. We have got one more slide on this. Visser is, yeah, okay. So only Visser has a better XGI than Jackson the first 2 game weeks. That is surprising. But as you say, it's those 3 big chances. So yeah, clearly all the forwards. And, you know, we're looking, he's got more XGI than Haaland. You know, we're not saying Haaland's rubbish. Although Haaland has converted in game week 1, I guess. But yeah, I'm big on Jackson, and it's Luton. If it wasn't Luton, if they were playing even a mid-table team, I probably wouldn't go there. You know, if they're playing Crystal Palace, that wouldn't be enough for me. But the fact it's Luton, I think we can enjoy that fixture. Followed by Forest, followed by Bournemouth. That's 3 games I know I want him.
Exactly, and you know, I think what's worth discussing here is the fact that, let's say, like yourself, you're in the position where you can invest. A lot of people who are looking to go for Alvarez, looking to go for Wissa.
Oh yeah.
So it's very important to make the comparison between these 3 forwards. So what is your take? Why do you prefer Jackson over, let's say, Alvarez?
Yeah, Alvarez is still going to be a minutes risk, guys. Like, it's lovely to see Foden and Alvarez in game week 1 and 2 have had 180 minutes each. That's great. And they've had good points because of it. And when they're in the team, they will always get points, these players. Now, that's fine when Bernardo Silva's injured, when Mahrez hasn't been replaced, when Gundogan hasn't been like for like replaced, and when KDB is injured. They'll get starts. But City are buying. So Doku's addition to the team will affect Alvarez's minutes. Even though Alvarez isn't playing wide right, it still affects his minutes because it's how many attacking players can Pep accommodate. If they go and buy the Eze, is still very much a rumour broken in the last 10 minutes. But if they go and buy another central attacking player, that really will affect Alvarez because Alvarez is the guy playing the KDB role, essentially. So long term, I think in the next week or 2, you could punt on Alvarez. Maybe you'll get points in the next couple of weeks and he'll probably start. But there's a very good chance in 2-3 weeks, you're already looking to move him on. I don't think that's necessarily the case with Foden. I think Foden is still that one player above in the pecking order, especially with his recent performance. So I think there's more routes to the 11 and there's more X minutes for Foden than Alvarez, which is why I prefer Foden over Alvarez. But if you're looking for a short-term punt, you could go either of these guys in the next couple of weeks because there's a good chance they both start. But it puts me off Alvarez because Jackson, I know I'm safe for minutes in the next 3 games. Can't be safe on Alvarez. Exactly. And you can argue similar with Visser, like he'll start, but he comes off, as you mentioned.
Exactly. And there's also the fact to consider that when you look at Alvarez, it's just not only about the X-Men as well. It's also the fact that he's playing 10, right? Well, Haaland clearly is the focal point of the attack. While when you compare that with Jackson is getting all the big chances for Chelsea. So positionally as well, I think Jackson is more of a goal scorer than Alvarez.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like everything is funneled towards Jackson as it is for Haaland, and Alvarez has to pick up some of the pieces. And he scored an amazing goal, but from a low XG chance. Foden's XG and XA is way better than Alvarez, by the way, in those 180 minutes. They've been sharing set pieces, which is interesting. And look, Doku signing could also affect Foden minutes further down the line. But for the time being, I think Foden is in that best 11. And I think he's played his way in.
Yeah, for sure. Pep was very complimentary of him as well. So I don't think, at least for the next 2 weeks, I don't think Foden will be a minute's risk.
Yeah. And he's played... he's obviously been playing fairly central. Like Foden was listed as the right-sided midfielder. But as soon as Walker is asked to do that job down the right and really bomb on, Kyle Walker of old, which is what we saw in game week 2 against Newcastle, Foden's playing centrally. He's playing just behind Haaland. And actually, Foden and Alvarez are playing almost on top of each other. But 9 points for Foden in game week 2. Foden owners can count themselves a little bit unlucky. Like, sure, you love the 9 points, but 6 chances created. Like, he put Haaland in a few times, and I was really surprised Haaland didn't tuck at least one of those away. So, yeah, points are coming for Foden, I think.
For sure.
Sterling or Nico Jackson, says Matthias. Like, given the choice, I think we both prefer Jackson.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
Sterling is like a cool differential punt, but I think Jackson is the one that's been clocking up the underlying numbers, which clearly, like me and BigMan are both big fans of XG and XA. Some of you guys in the chat maybe aren't so much, but even if you're more of an eye test manager, and I count myself an eye test manager too, Jackson's still catching the eye, guys. He really is. But look, Sterling could be fun. But accommodating a midfielder is way more difficult than accommodating a forward, which is why I think there'll be as many Alvarez buyers as Foden buyers, because it's probably easier to accommodate Alvarez than Foden for some teams. If you're on João Pedro, probably an easy sell. Big man, we've got to see your team. How have you been getting on? What's your overall rank? How many points are you on? And
I got 52. I got 52 points this week.
Okay.
That's a good score, I think, with Mbeumo and Saliba being the stars of the show.
Oh, it doesn't count if you have Saliba, mate. We have to take them off you. Unless you own Saliba all of pre-season, it doesn't count. You know.
I'm not getting into this debate regarding the leagues again.
My overall rank is just for those that have Gabriel game week 1.
I have an overall rank of 1.1 million.
Yeah.
And that's all right. I mean, I've had a reasonable start of the season. It's not great. It's a standard start, but I'm happy to stay with the rest of the pack at this stage of the season, because that's what I aim for. I'll pick and choose my moments to attack later on.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Okay, there we go. So let's have a look at your team. Talk us through it, big man, because you're set up very well for game week 3. Like even your bench players, certainly, Adogi and Archer, you wouldn't mind them coming in if they had to. But it's a good 11. You're in a good position with 1 free transfer or 2. This team. Yeah, so this is with 1 free transfer, is it?
Yes, I had 2 free transfers. And I had 0.5 in the bank. I had Reece James, though, on my bench.
Oh, yeah, of course you did.
Yeah, I started with triple Chelsea. Actually, I had Chilwell, Jackson, and James. And James, unfortunately, got injured. Surprise, surprise. So, I mean, we're looking at this team. I think it was fairly obvious that the transfer out had to be James, right? I don't really see anyone else who I'd want to sell this week in particular. The more pertinent question was who to sell him for. And it wasn't an easy decision, because there were plenty of other options as well who were standing out. I mean, I could have downgraded him to Augusto or went for a City defender, even, because their run of fixtures is really good and they're racking up the stats for defensive underlying data as well. But I picked Udogie because I really liked his underlying data this season. He's racking up plenty of touches in the final third. He had a big chance against United as well. Spurs have a very good run of fixtures coming up. And at 4.5, I think he could be good value, especially because he rotates very well with my entire defense. And not just that, I wanted to ensure that whatever transfer I make, I have enough in the bank to move to Trippier in game week 5, because Newcastle's run of fixtures is really, really good. And picking a cheap defender allows me to do that in game week 5. However, had I picked, let's say, Diaz, even though City are very, very likely to get clean sheets, he has low upside. So I did not want to block myself from the Trippier transfers, which is why I went with the Doggy.
That's interesting that you're already lining that transfer up, and I get it. Like, Trips was great last year. I had a similar dilemma. Like, I wasn't selling James, I was selling Gabriel, but I was between Udogie and Gvardiol. I went Gvardiol, and I'm happy with it. And he rotates well with my defenders, and I see him as a long-term hold. But I wasn't looking down the line, and I'm okay with that of leaving enough money in the bank for Trippier. And I guess if you had gone Gvardiol, that extra 0.5 has made a real difference to you. Like you obviously mentioned Diaz is an extra million, but Gvardiol would have only been an extra 0.5. But that's probably 0.5 you may have needed, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that there's a possibility that I might need Foden next week. So I just in case this was obviously with the assumption that I won't change my midfield, just in case I needed funds directly with this team to get to Trippier, and I could do that in game week 5. What about you? Aren't you planning to get Trippier by game week 5?
No, I think I'm all right with it. My defenders, right? I've got, so same as you. I've got Chilwell and Estupinan, but then I've also got Colwill, and and Chelsea fixtures are great now, but when they turn around, I don't know, game 6-7, Colwill might be a sell, and it might be that I go to say a Botman and cover that Newcastle defence, or if I happen to have money in the bank, maybe I move up to Trips, but I'm not necessarily bookmarking or planning that move. I think Newcastle with the Champions League fixtures, I'm not quite so bullish on their defence. Despite their defence looking great so far, what we've seen, even against Man City at the weekend, City defence was decent, low XG for City in that one. I just think with the European football and the Champions League, such a big deal for that football club. They'll go all out, and I wonder if their Premier League form suffers a little bit. And that is when the fixtures get good. So I want to see how that European football affects them. And I just much rather set and forget Gvardiol, who will miss one in every 5 games probably, because that's what happens with Pep. But if he starts 4 and 5 and doesn't feature in the 5th one, I'm fine with that having to be an Estupiñán or a Colwill coming off the bench with a tough fixture. So yeah, perhaps not as bullish on Newcastle defence as you. I'm really bullish on the Man City defence. I promised myself I'd own a Man City defender, and I've finally done it.
I'm more concerned about Livramento coming in, because they spent
good point.
They've spent quite a lot on him, and if he's coming in, then he options a rotation option with Trippier, and Trippier, he's 33. Yeah. I mean, he could be rotated, but again, I'll basically cross that bridge when we get to it. So I'm giving myself the flexibility to pick whoever I want. Basically, let's say whether it's a City defender, whether it's Trippier, I can get there easily in game 5. And at this point, I thought Udogie would be a good option because his fixtures coming up are really good. What are your thoughts on him?
He's amazing and perfect for FPL because he attacks for fun, and he's in a team that will attack fun. I don't think we'll see too many clean sheets. Like Spurs were lucky to keep a clean sheet against United, put up 2 XG. But we will get attacking returns. I'm sure he scored a header for Spurs pre-season from a corner.
He did.
Set pieces. And he's big. He's not built like a fullback. He's 6'2". He's powerful. He's big. He's good in the air. I owned him a bit in Serie A fantasy last season when he played for Udinese. And again, he shoots, he gets assists. He's good fun.
7 assists. Yeah, 7 assists last season as well.
For a not so good team. He's being asked to attack by Postecoglou as well. Like both the Spurs fullbacks are kind of inverted, and he's comfortable in those central midfield positions. So yeah, he's going to be loads of fun. I think he's probably the standout 4.5 defender in the game for me. Like I think Colwill and Botman will tick along, and maybe the Aston Villa guys. But Udogie's got the upside for sure, and he's the perfect 4th defender. He really is. I wasn't buying a 4th defender last night. I bought Gvardiol, and Colwill, if you like, is my 4th defender. But if I was looking for a 4th defender right now and you gave me the option to switch Colwill for Udogie, I think I'd make that move. So yeah, really, really fun. Lewis Hall, by the way, has come in to Newcastle, and there's an obligation to buy based on appearances and stuff like that. They want to buy this kid. Lewis Hall is going to get minutes, and I think lots of starts. He was one of Chelsea's best players at the end of last season. I'm shocked that they've let him go. I think we'll see Lewis Hall at left back instead of Dan Burn, but probably not for a few games. When we see that, he might be the route to the Newcastle backline for me, because you get a 4.5 defender who has some attacking threat, unlike a Dan Burn or a Botman. And Trippier, with Livramento coming in, I saw a few Newcastle fans speculating that Livramento is obviously way more comfortable right back. You could see Trippier at times even playing on the left, which seems weird. But for England, Southgate has used Trippier quite a lot on the left, which is weird because those crosses from his right foot out wide, you think would suit his game so much better playing right back. But at left back, he can still cut in and cross, and he's still your set piece threat. Personally, I don't think we'll see it much, but Newcastle fans have speculated that could be the case. So it puts me off spending so much on Trippier when someone like Lewis Hall might be similar in terms of minutes at 4.5.
Exactly. I mean, these are certain factors which need to be taken into account, but let's see where we stand when we get to Game Week 5.
Yeah. Oh, the end pod Matt said about Lewis Hall. Go on.
I'm actually curious to hear about your team once you get there.
Yeah. No, we might be able to show it. I'm not sure if we've got my points from last week from your last night's show, but similar attacking lineup to you. Like I haven't got Bruno, I've got Foden. I haven't got Mbeumo, I've got Mitoma, and I've got Watkins, but I'm about to buy Jackson, I think. So I've got money in the bank. I've got $1 million in the bank.
You're basically using both your free transfers.
Yeah, because I've already used Gabriel. I wanted to beat the price rise on Gabriel. The price
All
dropped.
right.
So I was happy. It's a weird one with Gabriel. Like, could have started him against Fulham. Like, I think he probably starts, but
Yeah.
would I prefer to start Guardiola or Colwill ahead of Gabriel? Probably. So I was planning on probably benching Gabriel if I'd kept him, and I would have started Colwill. So I was like, if I'm going to bench Gabriel, he could drop twice in price by the deadline. Like, I may as well just sell him now. Like, eventually, that is a transfer out waiting to happen for my team. Like, even if Gabriel scores 10 points against Fulham, you still want to sell him in game week 4, in my opinion. Like, there's still a huge risk there. So I was happy just to bite the bullet and sell him early. And then Jackson is a luxury move, but I think I'm going to go there.
I think Gabriel could start now that Tomiyasu is red carded and Zinchenko is back fit. I think Zinchenko will invert as the fullback, which gives Gabriel plenty of chances of starting as a left-sided centre back. So I don't think he's a hard sell. Personally, if I had your team, I would have just done Watkins to Jackson. But I mean, Guardiola is a good buy as well. I can't really fault it. But I mean, you had the luxury of playing Colwell at home against Luton as well.
Yeah, the double Chelsea defense scares me a bit. I was like, oh, give me Guardiola any day. And I saw our friend FPL Salah did his clean sheet odds earlier. Man City are something like 65% likely for a clean sheet versus Chelsea's, I don't know, 48%. So there's a bit of a swing there. And I saw that and went, yeah, it's Guardiola over Colwill for me. And there is the fear with Gabriel, you get 1 pointer off the bench again. That's still a fear because Partey's been playing really well at right back. If he plays Zinchenko as the inverted fullback and he doesn't play Partey, there's no Partey in the 11 because Rice is playing, Odegaard's playing, Havertz is playing. So I'd be surprised to see Partey dropped, if I'm honest. I'm not convinced Zinchenko comes straight back in because Partey's been playing well. And I think he likes Ben White central. And remember, if Zinchenko is left back and Partey isn't right back, it's Ben White right back. But Ben White, I think he quite likes central for his passing ability, playing out from the back. So I don't know. Arteta's probably overthinking it. That's what Mark says. Arsenal haven't looked the most fluid. And let's see what happens. But yeah, guys, comments in the chat about showing my team. Dom, we will bring up my team if we can. I'm not sure if we've got it loaded. If not, you can see my team on Friday's show when we do our pre-deadline stream around Friday lunchtime. Yeah, producers just said, no, you got to wait till Friday. And I don't mind that. But I've talked you through it. Any other pressing issues for you, big man? Are you likely to make any other moves or will you roll that second transfer?
I hope I'm in a position where I roll the second transfer because I can see myself making more transfers in the weeks to come. Let's say if United don't perform or if Arsenal don't perform, then obviously I can sell them next week. But I want to be in that position where I have 2 free transfers.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think if I was you, I think I'd make the same move. I'd just roll. If I didn't have Mbeumo though, and I did have Bruno, I'd be tempted to make that switch. But you've obviously got Mbeumo, so you're in a good place. There we go. Right, let's finish off with some questions. We've got about 6-7 minutes left of the stream. We're going to finish a tad early today. So get your questions in, guys. Thank you for the support as well. We didn't get to 100 likes, but maybe we will by the end of the stream. Hey, the end pod is in, Matt. I loved your one size joke with the Fitzhall comment. Older Palace fans might get that one. So get your questions in, guys. We will bring the best ones up on screen. We'll take alternate questions. If you fancy a super chat, feel free to drop it in. That will be prioritized, but regardless, we'll be looking to answer. I'll take the first one on a Doji. He's not a risk. Perisic, when he comes on, and how Postecoglou sees Perisic is as a wide man, a wide attacker. So he comes on in the front three, like for Son or out wide. He ain't playing left back in a 4 with the inverted system that Postecoglou plays. So no, I think Adoji's fine. Perisic maybe came on for Adoji at the weekend. No, he didn't. Ben Davis came on. So yeah, I'm right. You're good. Adoji's nailed. First, he's definitely first choice.
Would you sell Salah plus Pedro for Mbeumo plus Jackson, then bring Salah back for Rashford following week? I would make those transfers. Yes, because Salah, I don't see myself captaining him in the next 4 weeks. Which makes me question his value at 12.5 million. Yes, his numbers are still all right, and he will continue to do well. But again, at that price, I think you want a player you can captain. And Pedro, I don't think will start because De Zerbi was sort of criticizing him for his pressing in his comments, and Brighton just 1-4-1. So I don't think he's going to come back in. So I would make the moves that you have suggested, but I wouldn't bring Salah back the following week.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to commit to that. Like if he goes and really impresses you, maybe you can do it. But for the time being, you don't need to book that in. And then Enciso, you're right. Like because Enciso's playing well, there's a good chance Pedro doesn't come back in. What do we think about selling Martinelli? Yes, I think I'll end up selling Martinelli soon. I don't like how wide he is. He's not as good for me with Nketiah in the team, but he's also playing very wide and Arsenal haven't clicked. And he's coming off early. Like came off at 70 minutes the other day. Havertz got 90.
That was probably due to the red card, though.
Oh, true. Fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, you can't sell him ahead of Fulham away, though. Like you don't sell Martinelli this week for me. I think Fulham are the team to target. Like Fulham and Luton and Sheffield United, probably the bottom three to target for me in terms of defences. And remember, Team Ream will be out. So I'd keep Martinelli one more week.
Perfect. Start or bench Gabriel?
Oh, good question.
I would start him. I have shared my thoughts on him, and I expect him to start.
Would you start him over a Doji?
Of course. I don't think Spurs will keep a clean sheet this week. I think Arsenal might.
Yeah. He's got an amazing record against Fulham. He averages 10 points a game. Gabriel.
He has 3 goals. He has 3 goals in the 4 matches he's played against them. And Fulham are actually 20th for XG conceded from set plays this season as well. And historically, they have a big weakness and they have a tendency to concede from set pieces. So I can completely see Gabriel scoring a 15-pointer and shitting on Gianni straight in the face.
See, I knew all this information and I still sold him. I just can't be doing with it. And I guess the price drop was what triggered me. But points over pounds always more important. And you're right. Like he could go and get a 15-pointer. I'm fully aware of that. And get ready for Monday night run. If Gabriel does get a 15-pointer, guys, I'm going to turn nasty. FOMO on Mitoma. Should I sell Havertz for Mitoma or March? Again, I'd be reluctant to sell Havertz pre-Fulham because of the fixture. But yeah, Mitoma and March are both very fine pickups. But West Ham are good defensively. Like you don't need to pile in on Brighton on this week. But eventually, yeah, I think you want a Brighton attacker in your team. But look, big man, you don't have a Brighton attacker in your team. And the fixtures are about to turn a little bit. So maybe you're all right for a few weeks.
It's not just the fixtures. It's also the fact that their points are spread and Europe is going to become a factor soon. So I expect them to score points, but it's difficult to predict who will score them. I don't think any of them is a priority transfer in this week, but if you have them, you can just keep them.
What do you reckon about Jota? Glad you punted, Rock. I'm a big fan of Jota. Do you think you sell Jota this week? I think was the question.
I don't think I would. I think he's still worth keeping.
Same. Yeah. Good question, guys. Got 2 minutes left of the show. Keep them coming in. Salah and Pedro to Foden and Jackson. Yeah.
Yes, we've already sort of answered a very similar question. And yes, we like those moves. Did we overlook March? To an extent, yes. But he was at slight risk from Buonanotte early on, speaking to a few Brighton fans in terms of expected minutes. So yes, we did overlook him. But his expected minutes have turned out to be better than we thought it would. Ruben Diaz, Edison, or Akanji? Diaz. I mean, for minutes, got to be Diaz.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of even content creators are considering now Edison because it's like, clear route to the Man City backline. But if you want guaranteed minutes for the Man City backline, you get them through Diaz, and then can have a keeper with some upside, unlike Edison. So yeah, if money's not an issue, you go Diaz. But if not, if you want to spend 5 million, I like Vardiol still.
Keep Eze or buy Mbeumo. That's a very tough one.
That
is very tough because as his fixtures, as mentioned before, are really good after game week 4. He's someone I might look to be buying next week. I'm not really sure whether I'd sell him, but again, Mbeumo is a fantastic option as well. If you have 2 free transfers and nothing better to do, I would make the move. But if you have 1 free transfer, then I would save it.
Yeah, that's a good on the fence answer. I think I'm the same. You could always reverse it if you needed to, because I'm with you. Like Eze could become a really good asset in a couple of weeks. Second best captain option this week. Yeah, we haven't spoken about captaincy. We tend not to now. Haaland's in the game, which is so wrong. But I would be back in a home fixture. If Saka was on pens and we knew he was on pens, and he still could be, Saka's an option versus Fulham. You could go Odegaard or Martinelli too. I'd be back in Arsenal player, I think. Or you go really rogue and go Jackson against Luton, because why not?
I think I'd go with Rashford.
You go
Simply
United, yeah, another home fixture.
Yeah, simply because of his goal threat. I would have preferred Saka, but I'm not sure whether he's on penalty, so I would go Rashford.
Yeah, but Rashford's not on pens. He'd still go there.
Yeah, but he's more direct. Yeah, he's more direct. And his open play goal threat is significantly higher than Saka's.
Yeah, Jota or Diaz. I still like Jota. Diaz underlying numbers are slightly better, but I'd go Jota. I just think he's a bit greedier. I think he's a bit more of a hogger of big chances. Oh, bench boost question. What do you reckon to this bench boost? That's not a bad bench boost, to be fair, but I just like the double game weeks. But that's a good bench boost.
Agreed. It is a good bench boost, but again, you save that for later. And I don't think Rashford should be on your bench.
Yeah, is Rashford really on your bench? Who's your eighth attacker? Who's your seventh
exactly.
attacker?
I don't think he has the team in the right order. And Guardiola as well, that's questionable too.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's your bench, mate. Surely. If so, if that is your legit bench, you're not putting enough money in your 11. You need to trim that squad. Shams, when is the big man be thinking about wildcarding? Yeah, you got any thoughts on that?
I don't have it pre-planned as such, but I've sort of set my team up, which should be hopefully sustainable enough to maintain for the longer period. So I'm hoping to hold off as long as possible.
Yeah, me too. I don't like to put market in. A lot have looked at that 7-8 plan. I haven't even looked at it. I will wildcard when the time is right for my team. And if I can keep, the longer I can keep it, the better, I guess. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Look, we'll be back every Wednesday, remember? So if you're new around here, please do hit that subscribe button. Thank you as always to CH for being our mod today. We'll be back on Friday, me and Dean. Me and Big Man back next Wednesday. But for now, and sorry to cut us short, I've got to run. He's been Big Man. I've been Gianni, and we've been chasing green arrows. See you later.